Welcome to my podcast, Today's Dream, Tomorrow's Reality. My name is Vicki Poole, and I'm a master transformational coach and hypnotist. I specialize in habit change, and this podcast is sponsored by the Enlightened Peach. And this is all about embracing our mosaic life. And some of you may ask, what is a mosaic life anyway? Well, it is recognizing that all the pieces of our life, the good, the bad, the indifferent, have all come together to make us who we are. Change any one thing and we are different. With that in mind, I invite you to embrace your perceived imperfections and celebrate who you are. This podcast is unedited and raw, just like life. And I am your host, and I have a special guest today, and I will introduce her in just a moment. But I would love to ask you to do me a solid. Leave a comment on this episode. Remember to like, subscribe, and share. That way I can get this out to more people and give each person that is a guest on my podcast a bigger voice. All right. So now let's get started. And before I bring Darci out, I'm going to just share that we were both in a group of wonderful enlightened beings having in a workshop, and she got on and like a coaching capacity, and I was just like floored with some of her story and the energy that she had, and it was like I have to reach out to her. So as you guys know, or if you're new to my channel, you don't, but one of the things I love to do is peruse all the groups that I'm in on Facebook. And when somebody has an amazing story, I reach out every single time. Some people take me up on it and some people don't. And I figure that the people that are supposed to be here will grab onto that and be here. And Darci was definitely one that did. So let me introduce her really quick, or bring her on. I already introduced her. There's Darci. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me. I'm so blessed to be here.
All right. So if you would go ahead and maybe tell a little bit about who you are, how you got into that group, whatever it is that you feel compelled, and then we'll go from there. But who are you, Darci?
That's a great question, Vicki. I've been trying to find out who Darci is for the first time over the last 5 years. I've kind of had, I did have in September of 2019. Some people may be familiar with this, some people may not, but I had what's called a spontaneous Kundalini awakening that I had no clue. I grew up as a Christian. Had no clue about the spiritual aspect that I've now embraced, that has put me on a path where it left me in a place of isolation and just learn how to cope with some of the trauma and abuse that I endured as a child and throughout a 20-year narcissistic marriage that has brought me to my calling and purpose. What I know now, things that I thought happened to me my entire life were actually happening for me. Yes. And what I've learned over these last 5 years of shadow and journaling and reading things like Body Keeps Score and Tethered Soul and watching Abraham Hicks and the Wayne Dyers and things of that nature, and that ultimately left me to the group that has brought me to my purpose. And the reason why I felt compelled, you were drawn to me, is that I want to try to help other mothers. There's even fathers that have went through narcissistic abuse and they're being currently parental alienated from their children. And so I have given up. I was previously, for 25 years, I was a pharmaceutical and medical device sales rep. And when my divorce ended and I ended up having to from that situation, I found myself destitute. Basically, ended up 2 years ago, believe it or not, living out of my car with my dog. And after 25 years of being a very successful medical device and sales rep, and for a reason, I had the whole carpet ripped out from underneath me, and it was God's way of waking up, or source or creator, or whoever you want to call it. For me, it's God. Wake me up and go, Darci, it's not about money. It's not about material in this world. You can't take that with you. I brought you through this life. I let you go through what you did as a child and as 20 years of abuse to bring you to your purpose and calling, and that is to help serve others, to help give hope that there are, maybe they feel like victims to their circumstance at the moment, but they're actually survivors. And so that is what I'm being led to do.
All right. Well, perfect. Well, I want to kind of go back a little bit in time because you mentioned, you had a hard childhood. And so do you have siblings?
I have an old, he's 3 years older. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But
And so go ahead.
I was just going to say she was diagnosed bipolar. So extremely, mentally and emotionally, physically abusive to my brother and I. But yeah.
Your mother? Is that who you said? You broke up for just a second. So
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, I'm
all right,
sorry.
Perfect.
She was diagnosed bipolar.
Okay. All right. So you were, that's pretty traumatic just from what I know about that, much less living it. And I have had other guests on before that have had that kind of thing, and it can be pretty traumatic. So when you look back at those days, what is the gift that you can see from it?
Well, it took me until my spiritual awakening that I didn't see the gift in that. It sometimes either people succumb to their circumstances or they persevere through them. And I just was luckily one of those people that I had this like can-do attitude that no matter what you tell me, no matter the fact that you said I would never amount to anything, I did. And I had that, really? Watch me. Watch me. And you show up and you glow up and you make something of yourself, and everybody can sit around and say, look what she did with us.
Yeah. So the gift that you see from it is the resiliency and the determination that you have to make things happen. 100%. Am I understanding you right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And ultimately, God gives you as much as it takes for you to wake up to know what your purpose
right
is. And some people figure that out. Some people.
Yeah. I refer a lot of times to, we get these little indicators that are kind of small that we need to do something, and we ignore it, then it gets a little bit bigger. And so I say, if you listen when God whispers, you're good. But if you wait too long, it's a baseball bat and you are thrown into something that you never anticipated. So it is, I've gotten really good at saying, wait a minute, did I just hear a whisper? What was that?
I got that a lot. And until you really hit rock bottom, don't learn to listen to those little whispers, the God whispers, or the God winks, as some people call them. But it's like this gnawing feeling and this intuition in your stomach that lets you know. And until you are put in a place, you have to sit with yourself and figure out what it is that your body's telling you and what it is you're like almost telepathically being told. Like after I had my spontaneous awakenings, it was the craziest, most thing I had ever experienced. I thought I was gone crazy and delusional. There was no explanation for it. My daughter thought I'd lost my mind because this is the most stable mother, and all my children thought. And I was knowing things and having visions of what was about to happen. And I was telling people, which was the wrong thing to do looking back, because everybody thought I was a nut job. But now knowing, looking back, and I have a term for it now that I read about what this spontaneous awakening was, is Kundalini
Mm-hmm.
awakening. I actually ended up having an outer body experience that's part of what a spontaneous Kundalini awakening is. And a lot of people strive to do that in this world. And that I've come to find, I'm like, no, that was a freaking nightmare. Once you get through the darkness of what the Kundalini awakening happened to you, and you see and you understand what you being told and you're being shown. And I still to this day do get visions and dreams that do come true. Like I am being
Mm-hmm.
foretold what's going to happen in my life, and what, people that are close to me, that's happening to me around me. So I can't see other people's. I can only see what's happening in what's going to happen to me, and like close people. I'm told what's being happened, and I don't even know. Nobody's told me. I just know.
Yeah.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But I've
So
learned to accept.
it's like a big intuition hit, I guess. Or is it more than that?
It's way more. It's way deeper than that.
Okay.
It took me a long time to come to terms with what it is that God has given me the gift of.
Mm-hmm. So how do you use that gift?
I'm still figuring it out. So I know things that I don't. There's no explanation how I know about them. I'm just shown them in dreams. Things that are happening in my litigation case, I'm still having to deal with from my divorce, the backlash and things that happened, that I ended up losing our $5 million marital estate and all my possessions and our house. And I lost my job, and I lost all conservatorship of my children because my ex-husband's attorney paid my attorney under the table to get me to sign documents, and I lost everything. And it just was the whole process of that has made me realize what's really important in life. And he's given me the abilities to know what's happening with my children, even though I can't physically have any verbal communication, or he's made sure that's been all cut off. So, but I am shown visions, and I know what's happening
Mm-hmm.
without actually what's happening.
So how old are they?
Aaliyah turns 18 today.
Oh,
Happy
wow.
birthday, Aaliyah. If you see this podcast, because I have no way to communicate with her, unfortunately. So yes, she's 18 today. And then my daughter, Addison, turns 20 on April 2nd. And then I have my oldest daughter, who is 30, and she's in Houston, Texas, where I moved from just recently.
And what was her name? I didn't hear that one.
Ashlyn.
Ashlyn. Oh, okay. I
Ashlyn.
have one of my best friend. She has a daughter named Ashlyn. Yeah, that's the only time I'd ever heard it, because it ends with a D. Hers does. Does yours end with a D too?
Oh, no. I always liked the name Ashley, and my mom's middle name was Lynn. So I thought I was being creative, and I put them together, Ashlyn. So it's ASHLNN.
Oh, okay. Hers is LYND. I believe that's how you spell it. So it's Ashland. But yeah. Well, let me ask you. So how long has it been since you've been able to communicate with your girls?
5 years.
5 years. Well, that has got to be, such a hard place. I cannot even imagine. And I'll just share really quick. It's not even the same thing, but I can empathize with you to a certain extent, because at one point I had my son's girlfriend had a baby, and I was asked by defects to raise this child as my granddaughter. And I won't get into the reasons that, but as I'm raising her, I got her from the hospital. She came home from the hospital with us. She was in the NIC unit because she was a preemie and the other issues. And I had her for, I think she was 6 months. I can't remember if she was 6 months or 3 months. Hell, I think it was 6 months. DFACS let me know that she was not my grandchild. My son had to do the paternity test and he wasn't the father. I was devastated, but I said,
Oh,
I don't care. This is my child. This is my grandchild. And so I'll keep her, you know? And so I was able to keep her until the courts gave her to her mother when she was 3. And then I still got to see her for almost a year. And then she took her away where I couldn't see her anymore.
that's
And there's not a day that doesn't go by that I don't think about her. I still have a keepsake box with her little stuffed animals, her thing I came home from the hospital, her favorite book. I wrote a letter to her about the day she was born and how I felt about it and how much I loved her. And it's in there too. And I have a door, a lot of people put children's heights on the door frame. I put
yeah,
it on the door.
I did
I
that.
put it on the door so that every time I move, that door comes with me. Now, the last height that she's got on there, the last time I had her in my house was right about 3. And
Oh,
so that's the last height on there. But I have that door. So when I go out anywhere I think she might be, I'm looking at these little girls with this little blonde hair and stuff. And I think, oh, is that her? Because I wouldn't
yeah.
recognize her because now, last time I saw her was actually right before her 4th birthday, and she will be 10 in June. So there's a huge gap in what she would look like. And so I get it,
Right.
not in the same way because it is a different thing, but I can understand that feeling of, I don't know what's going on. Is she okay? And I'm all the time sending her prayers and love and light. And I think, she doesn't know where these good feelings are coming from, and that's okay. I just feel like it makes me feel better sometimes to think that she's sitting there. Maybe she's stressed about something, and all of a sudden she has this good feeling, and that's me sending her all this love and light and prayers. And that's the only thing that keeps me um, um, feeling the least bit comfortable with the
Close.
whole thing. Yeah, yeah. So I understand that I cannot imagine it being 3 daughters, and I just cannot even imagine. So when you're thinking about that stuff, how do you cope with um, that being pulled and not being able to see a picture, not being able to call and check on them? Because the reason I can't is because I don't even know where she's at. You know where they're at, and that's got to be even harder.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
The
that's one
the
of the things you help
narcissistic
people
abuse.
with, right?
Yeah, yeah. That's my plan. This is my purpose. This I'm trying to allow people to seek me out to do maybe help life coach them and direct them and give them guidance through their divorce process, because when you are married to a narcissistic, a malignant narcissist in my case, well, he was also actually I expert witness for my trial who did an investigation on him and said he's not just a malignant narcissist, he's a psychopath. And boy, that was like, it makes me sick because I know what he did to me, which was so hideous and heinous, and it it's just the level and magnitude of control manipulation that they do, and the brainwashing and the gaslighting that they do to your children and to you. They alienate you from all your friends and your family, and they they put trackers on your phones. They need to know where you're at all times. And the fact that I know that they're going through all that, and they want their mother, they want me in their life. I was everything in their world, and he was so dead set because of the ugliness on the inside of him that feeds his narcissistic tendencies. He had to have control and manipulation, and he triangulated everybody and got his flying monkeys in there to spread his words of his directive narrative that I was crazy and delusional, and tried to make everybody think it was me and he's the victim. But what he does behind closed doors, what people don't realize behind closed doors is these look at Charles Manson, and other people that seem like very charming and witty and intelligent people on the outside, but behind closed doors, people don't realize what's going on. And unfortunately, I wasn't allowed to tell anybody because of the level of fear and the things that he would do, like holding me at gunpoint and threatening to kill me and my kids if I reported it to the police, that I know he's doing to my children, and is why they're not able to, they don't feel safe to reach out to me. And he's forced them to block me and cut me off. And anytime I found them on social media, he immediately shuts it down. I mean, still at the ages that they're at, it's just this brainwashing that has been set in for 5 years, that no matter what age they get to, the level of fear never leaves. It's like, until I was put in a position where, in this Kundalini awakening, it showed me in 2 months from that September 2019 to the time I ended up fleeing my ex-husband in November of 2019, which they showed me was going to happen, and it happened. And they were preparing me. They showed me this because they were preparing me for what was to come. And it did. It happened just like that. And until people are aware of what's happening behind closed doors, it's my mission to help bring awareness and help educate the law enforcement and the legal and judicial system that failed us. CPS was 24 times. He was not charged 26 times for criminal accounts. Because we had money, so he paid off people. And unfortunately, government, they're incentivized. They're paid under the table, and it's happening, folks. It's happening, whether you like to admit it or not. It happened to me, so I can speak to it with authority that I have to do this. I have to bring awareness that law enforcement officers think they know it all. Judges think they know it all, but they don't have to keep with the new information that's being put out there and educate. And I feel like I want to bring judicial reform, and talk to legislators and try to force judges and amicus attorneys and counselors and GALs, which are guardian ad litems, and attorneys, to be required by law, if they have a license, they have to put in 15 credit hours per year in order to keep their license up with the latest information and the latest use and the latest, just so they're aware of signs and symptoms, so we're not missed and through the cracks like we were.
Yeah, that sounds like some powerful stuff there. And I will share real quick. I've had a few people that have been guests on my podcast that they had a different experience than what you did, but one of them in particular, and for the life of me, I cannot think of her name. It's been quite a while since I had her on, but she was actually a victim of human trafficking from a family member. And they had defects out and all these different things, but her parents would or her mother would kind of dismiss it, and so the police would not leave her there. She even had a time where she was at her father's house because he lived in a different house, and when her mother came to get her, she was begging and pleading not to go. Her mother called the police, and the police said, "Honey, you got to go. It don't matter. Her papers say that you belong to her." And they put her right back into that place. Yep. So what she does is she talks at schools. She talks to the government agencies to let them see what the signs are when they're called in, so that they can understand, because the parent or whoever's there doing the thing is not letting them be free to speak. So it was certain cues that would let them know. And that's one of the things that she does, is she goes and she talks and has these programs and everything. So I'll see if I can remember. I can try to go back and find her name, and I will give you her information, or you can look, I'll send you the podcast. You can listen to it. Yeah. And then that way you could connect with her and see if that's something. Yeah. And I had another woman who was in the church, and her grandfather was really high up in the church, and so she was trafficked into the church. And it was a long time before she could get any attention, because everybody said that they were the family to aspire to be, and so they didn't believe anything she said. And so, it happens. and
Exactly.
and like I said, my case with my granddaughter was not the same, but when it came time for the judge to give her birth mother custody, the defects worker and the CASA worker both said, do not give this child to this woman. She only wants her for ownership. There's no bond, and she's not going to take care of her. He gave her to her anyway. Within it wasn't even 2 years, she had handed her over to someone else. She just wanted to make sure I didn't get her. I don't know. It's
Exactly.
bizarre how they don't listen. Like that judge told these two women, and they had written out documents and everything. And he said, I don't
Yep.
care. This is a family first state. This is her mother. And I say that's where she goes. And, but there's no
That,
recourse. There's nothing you can do.
that's where our judicial system is failing us, because we
Yeah.
have experts telling them. And because these judges think they know it all, and these law enforcement think they know it all, and CPS thinks they know it all, we all know that CPS is
What is CPS? Child Protective Services?
Child Protective Services.
Okay.
Is a government funded program nationally that is failing miserably. They literally told me, out of the 24 calls that were called on my ex-husband, they came to me and they never investigated. I called 3 times out of the 24. I had legitimate reasons to. They never reached out to me to ask me for any of my video footage, audio, or pictures of proof and evidence. And they, after the 24 calls, they finally called me out of frustration and said, stop having people call us and report. I said, I'm not doing it. I've only called 3 times. Everybody else that's called you is not by my doing. I don't know who's called, but it's for legitimate reasons, apparently. And she said, let me just tell you something. CPS go and we interview the dad or the mother, and we interview the kids, and we take them out of the room. And in my children's case, because my husband is so paranoid, malignant narcissists have a level of paranoia that is beyond belief. He has video cameras all over the outside of the house and in the house, so he can hear and see everything that my children are saying at all times. So even though CPS removed his house and they felt like they did their job by talking to my children separately in a room, he heard and saw everything they said, and they knew it because they knew they were there. So they had to choose their words wisely, and they could not confess to what was happening, because this is how jacked up these narcissists are. And so CPS told me, they said, if we go in there, we see they are living in a nice, and they look like they're in clean clothes and well fed. We see no visible bruises, because narcissists don't leave visible bruises a lot of times. It's the mental, emotional, and abuse that's the worst.
Mm-hmm.
I'd rather a bruise or a broken bone over all the rest, because the rest is irreversible to the brain that's not formed in a child that's going. But anyway, CPS said, if you see that there's no visible bruises, there's no bones sticking out, no child that's dead on the floor, and they look well nourished, we close the case. End of story.
Yeah.
24 times. No investigation.
So with all of that, and your focus right now is to help people that are in that position where they have they're alienated from their child. And I know there are a lot of people out there that experience this, and even some of them, it's like they're very young. Some of them, they're not so young, but even some adult children can be alienated just because that parent is so
Controlling.
I don't know. They can get in their head and control them so much that they have a different
Yeah.
idea. Just kind of like, there are, and I'm not saying this is always the case, but there are times that people become um, attached to their torturer because that's what they know, and they feel like that's just what there is, right? So they may not, after a while, they may not even realize that there's a different truth. So how do you tell people
Exactly.
that are having that?
Exactly. So let me explain that. We all understand that autism is on a spectrum. There's autism, and then there way up here is Asperger's. So we understand
Hmm.
there's a spectrum. Okay. The DSM-5, which is what all medical practitioners and the judges go by, is the DSM-5. The DSM-5 only recognizes NPD, which is narcissistic personality disorder. Narcissistic personality disorder is also on a spectrum. There can be your general A narcissists that aren't as severe as in my case. Then there's the middle one, the overt narcissist, and there's a malignant narcissist, which is basically in the same category as a psychopath or a sociopath. My ex-husband was diagnosed a malignant narcissist with sex addiction and pornography addiction. I also, side note, found out he was running two sex trafficking rings. So I can kind of relate to the sex trafficking aspect. I literally just ended up being given a vision, as I've been told. I've told you I have, that he was planning on selling my children into sex trafficking over spring break this weekend. And I actually went ahead in advance from my vision, went in and talked to, you can apply to have passport blocked for a minor if you have joint custody, so a minor, that parent who has conservatorship at the time, whether it's legal or illegal, you can, as the other parent, you can still block them from getting a passport. I was able to shut down him taking my children to Mexico, where I know he was going to sell them off for sex trafficking this coming spring break next week. And as I filed for, I think it was called a child endangerment. I'm trying to remember, CCPA, the child passport issuance program. I was shown a vision he was going to do this. I immediately paperwork for the child passport issuance diversion program, and because I did that, because I followed my vision and what I was shown was going to happen, guess what? Washington, D.C. called me and notified me 3 weeks ago and said, your ex-husband just filed for a passport. Did you agree to this? And I said, no, I did not. They said, did he ask for written permission? Because they get legal permission when you're at divorce. The other parent cannot take the child out of the country without permission, written permission from the other parent. And I said, he did not get written permission from me. And then stopped the passport, and I was able to stop him from going to Mexico, where we found out he was planning to go to sell my children, because, like you said, they're very, very mentally ill. They do not care about the children. They just hurt you. They don't want them. They just don't want you to have them. And
Hmm.
very, very sick. And they mentally get into those children's brains. And this best analogy I can give you, Vicki, is when people say, I don't have any sympathy for domestic violence victims or children's abuse, or they should be able to leave when they're 18 and 20. Let me just give you an analogy of how this works. So, because people don't get it, until you've lived it and understand it, or had a family member go through it. I'm going to give you this analogy. So if you think of a baby elephant, okay, and you put a rope around that baby elephant's leg at birth, and you tie it to a heavy iron chair, and that baby elephant tries and tries and tries to get free from that chair, it knows it can't get free from that chair. And as that baby elephant grows, it might try a couple more times and it still can't get free from that chair. And then it becomes a full grown adult, and that rope is still tied to that leg and to that chair. Okay. but they're 2 or 3 tons, and they could easily snap that rope like a twig and get free from that chair. They are already conditioned from a
Mm-hmm.
child that they are not able to get free, so they will stay because they don't know any different.
Mm-hmm.
They've
Well, a
never
lot of
experienced
adults
free.
do that too. They will stay in a situation. Sometimes it's because the perpetrator has them convinced that that's the best they can do.
That's the analogy I'm trying to make is
Yeah.
the baby elephant syndrome. As an adult, it doesn't know it can get free. So in my situation, in 20 years, and I was held at gunpoint, not to tell anybody, couldn't tell my friends. He'd isolated me. And because of the fear factor, you don't go report it, because he had said, if this will be a homicide, I will kill you and your kids. It wasn't our kids, it was my kids. I'm going to kill you and your kids if you go report this to anybody, or you ever get back home, they'll be dead, and I will have this will be a murder suicide. So I, as his wife and a smart, intelligent person that I am, the level of fear that he had put inside of me, like the elephant had no idea that it could get free. I also thought, he's going to do this. I can't tell anybody. I can't report it until I actually got free. I was in a position where I ended up fleeing him because I overheard a conversation, him saying he was going to be killed. So that is when I knew it was imminent, and I had to flee immediately. And that is what was shown in my visions when they started in December, that this was what was going to happen in November of 2018. And I'm like, holy crap, I was showed this, and I fled, and I took kids with me. I didn't leave them behind. But yet my ex-husband used our $5 million marital funds, that majority of the money I made, he used and stole from me, paid off the precinct, the Harris County police constables, to not have him be arrested, charged. And they called me and told me I had to bring my children back to him. They knew this was a domestic violence divorce case, and the abuse that I had proven that I had went through, I was going to be charged with kidnapping if I didn't bring my kids. And once I brought them back, I never saw them again.
Wow. That's a lot to unpack.
And that's where I'm. It is, and I'm sorry that's so. But this is why I need to bring awareness as happening behind closed doors, and why
Right.
it is my purpose in calling that I want to help these survivors. They're not victims, they are survivors. They just don't know it yet. And that if they push past the fear of the known, that they do not have to continue to be controlled and manipulated by their abuser. There is freedom on the other side, and I've lived it. I've been there, I've done that. I got the t-shirt.
Yeah.
And there's freedom, and I can help guide these men through the divorce process and tell them who to reach out to that can help them, that are specifically specialized in narcissistic abuse attorneys. And there is an actual organization that can put you and your kids a program where it reunites the children and the mothers that have been alienated, or the fathers that have been alienated from their children, because of the trauma bonding that you were talking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like they're addicted to it. It's like crack, like heroin. They get
Yeah.
addicted to the bond because they love bomb them, and they abuse them, and then they love bomb them to bring them back. And it's just like this vicious cycle, and they're
Yeah.
trauma bonded. And so there's organization through Linda Gottlieb, New York. It's called, I believe it's called Parents for Tomorrow. And she takes a 3-month reunification program for your children, so they can teach the children what's to them, and then show them that their mother is not who the narrative of the other parent that was abusing and created this negative narrative, bring you guys back together.
Yeah. Well, so what is, it's like, is there something that you can see going in are that might be an indicator that that's the kind of person that is, or are they just so good about hiding it that you don't know for a long time? What's your opinion on that, if you have one?
Great question. Here's the if you were raised an abusive parent, you don't know any different a lot of times. So you dismiss the red flags that now looking back, I did have red flags prior to marrying my husband. I
Mm-hmm.
did. I did do some abusive or mentally and verbally and emotional things that I should I should have known. I didn't know my own self-worth. So I thought that was okay because that's what all I know. So
Right.
looking back, yes, there are red flags and red signs, but if you've already been in an abusively and you are seem to be drawing and attracting energetically the same type of individual in your life, and until you heal yourself and do shadow work and the inner child healing work, you're going to continue to keep attracting those type of individuals in your life until you raise your own vibration frequency is what you will attract. When you're at a lower vibration and frequency from abuse, you keep attracting those same types of individuals. So what my advice is if you've grown up in an abusive situation, please, please, please do the work before you get in a relationship. And if you start seeing signs that they are talking to you or they're verbally putting on and say, oh, that was just a joke. They
Mm-hmm.
passive aggressive things that you can pick up on. Like he used to call me Mommy Darci in front of my kids. Oh, your mom. It doesn't she act like they didn't even know what Mom Darci was. They were little kids. That's a movie from a long time ago. Some
Right.
of your
Right.
viewers might not even know it, but Mommy Darci was about a
I
bipolar mother that
know.
abused kids. And he used to call me that. Yeah, we know. And so he would call me, oh, your she's gone metal hangers. They didn't know what that was, but he was planting the seeds already as children in
Well,
them
that was
that
probably
trying
more
to create
directed
the
at
narrative
you.
already that I
Don't you think that was
yeah
probably more
yeah
directed at you than
it
it
was
was them? And, and I'm
oh,
not an expert on this
oh
by
yeah, but
any means.
it was planting the seed.
Right. Well, I'm not an expert on this
He
by
was
any
planting the
means, but
seed
I have
for later
dated,
on to prove.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. I have dated a few people that I
go ahead.
got away from because I started paying attention to the indicators. And because the thing is that my experience is that when somebody's dating you and they want all your time, all your time, all your time, then and they start
Yes,
giving you a hard
yes,
time with who are you talking to, those kinds of things. That's kind of a red flag you need to pay attention
yes.
to. And then like
Oh,
I
yep.
dated a guy for a while that traveled a lot, and I in the back of my mind I kept thinking something feels off, something feels off. And I should have listened to that. I didn't because he was able to excuse it away, my concerns. And then let's see,
Yep.
I dated a guy one time that he wanted to, um, he wanted to give me things a lot. And but when he would give me things, it would be
Love
after
bombing.
that
That's
he would
called
be
love bombing.
really ugly to me. And I finally got to the
Yeah.
place where I told him, I said, you can't give me anything big enough for me to stand with this anymore. And I was a little bit afraid of him, so I
Praise God.
didn't leave then. I waited till the next day when he went to work. I got a U-Haul, packed all my stuff, and I was gone. And so I think sometimes we have to
Girl.
learn that there's a time to just pack up and get your shit out. Don't confront them. And because, and this is something I don't know that I've ever really talked about much to somebody that I don't know. But I had a friend when I was in high school that her mother was divorced from her father, and she was dating a new guy, and she'd been dating him for a little bit. And um, she had gotten a message from an old boyfriend, and she decided to leave this guy, right? And I know this is a long story, but she decided to leave him. And she got a call at work one day. And so all that they knew was that she was going home to meet someone. And so she went home to meet that boyfriend that she'd broken up with. He ended up strangling her, leaving her there, and her daughter found her, my friend. And if she had not gone to have that conversation with him, you know, and so I think sometimes we get to where, because I've seen people that get into situations where they will actually stand up and they'll bulk up against this big man, you know, and it's like, man, if it's getting to that point, you need to get your ass out,
Yes.
because somebody's going to get hurt, and it's probably going to be you.
Yeah.
And you know, there's so many people that and I know this kind of thing happens to men too, and we don't ever
Yeah.
speak of that because it's not
Yeah.
as common. But I
Right.
just want people to know that, you know, there's nothing wrong with saying this is not right
Yep.
and I've got to do something else,
Yep.
because ultimately you're getting these whispers, you're getting some talking, some shouting, some screaming, and then you're going to get the baseball bat if you're not
Yep.
careful. And so I,
Yep.
you know, and this is, I know I didn't mean to hijack your conversation there, but,
No.
but,
No.
I just felt like it was important to go there.
Yeah. So that that makes me want to just reiterate some more red flags.
Okay.
Okay. So when you're first dating someone and you haven't known them very long at all, say it's 1 or 2 dates, and all of a sudden they're saying, "Oh, I love you. I think you're my soulmate. I love you," and they rush the relationship and they rush to want to get married. Um, and they love bomb you and they buy you lots of gifts and they're you with everything, and then they'll do something really mean or abusive, and then they'll go, "Well, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. It'll never happen again." And then they love bomb you and buy you something else, and until you like break down and finally marry the guy, and then you're really screwed, because then I was like stuck. It was like 6 months into the marriage that the mask fell completely, and I saw the evil person that was inside them. What really happens with a narcissistic person is they were themselves abused. Something happened to them as a child, and they never were able to recover from that, and so they turned to a narcissist. And so all this fear, and their biggest fear is abandonment, and they will do anything they can to keep you, even though they don't want you. They want to control, manipulate you, and take you suck the life out of you, suck your soul out of you. I call them energy vampires. That's what feeds their narcissism. And narcissists are so unhappy and so can find no peace and joy and happiness within themselves that they will do anything to steal, to take that light from you. They sought you out to begin with because you're an empath. You have a bright light about you. You have everything that they sought you out, because they see everything they wanted in themselves. So they sought out, and then because they hate themselves so much and they're living with the shame and guilt of whatever happened to them that injured them as a child that they were never able to recover from, they then try to steal all that and suck all that from you, and they will love bomb you to make you stay, and then they will abuse you, and then they will love you bomb you again. But the signs are immediately, if it's within 1 to 2 dates and they're saying they I love you already, and oh, you're my mate, and red flag, red flag. Okay, that's not normal. It's
Yeah.
okay to have boundaries and say, you know what, it, it's okay to take time to get to know this person, because we'll make a huge mistake if you jump headfirst into this relationship, because that mask is going to, and those little bitty red flags you put off about the love bombing, and then he did something to be like, my right before I married my husband, um something triggered him. We went out one night, and on our way home he tried to strangle me while he was driving, and that was before we got married. And I should have then gone, holy shit, I'm out, because I already had a 5-year-old daughter at the time, and I should have known better, because want I want these domestic sexual assault victims that are going to be survivors and to know that you have children and you feel like you're staying in that relationship for your children, you're not doing them a service because your children are watching you tolerate this. You're teaching them that this is okay for them to have to accept later, that this is okay. We don't want to teach children that this is acceptable. We have to
Right.
we have to leave as soon as we can and do the healing work and don't into another relationship. Teach your children that you are stronger than that, you have worth and you have value and you are enough, and no man should make you feel less than. No man should make jokes and passive aggressive comments. No man has a right to put his hands on you. And yes, you can rape your wife even though you're married. There are men that will say you can't rape your wife. You know, yes, yes. If you say no when you don't want to have sex, it's no. If
Yeah.
one person says yes and the other person says no, the answer is no. And I did not, he would not appreciate my boundaries when I said, no, I'm not doing this. You're using or abusing me and you're forcing me to have sex. And he would choke me out till I passed out, or he would date rape drug me literally during our marriage. And I was telling my therapist, I was letting everybody know outside of telling the police, hoping they would notify the police, but I guess they made some rule within their own practice or their own oath that they to be a counselor that they can't do that. But they all were aware. They even had my own ex-husband's confession in our counseling sessions. He admitted to laughing jokingly, yeah, I've raped her, so what, we're married, because he
Yeah.
brought up in the Bible that he used he picks they pick out these little in the Bible where it says your wife is to do as I say. They are to obey me, and I am the head of the house, and you obey me. That's bull crap. No,
Yeah. Well, people
understand your
can
worth
pull
and your
out
value.
whatever they want to from anything to solidify whatever they're saying or doing. Well, I want to real quick. I want to one of the things that I want to make sure that we talk about or we emphasize a little
Yeah,
bit is that when you're there are good men out there. There are good men out
there
there.
are,
But
there are.
but unless like Darci said, unless you've worked on yourself, like when I have a client, if they're going through a divorce or anything like that, I tell them, do not date anybody until we've worked through all of this stuff. That might
Yeah,
be 6 months, that might be a year, it might be two
yes,
years. I don't know. But
it's
until
5 years.
you work yeah, and until you work through that, you attract the same kind of person because you're the same kind of person.
Yes,
And you're probably even worse than what you
yes,
were when you
yes,
accepted whatever that was.
yes,
And so it takes some healing
yes,
and learning to love yourself to where you get where when somebody that's when you recognize the bullshit.
yes,
So when
yes,
you've gotten healed and you go out with somebody and all of a sudden it's like, I think I'm going to get me a different ride home. I don't even want to get in the car with this guy. You
yeah,
start becoming so strong within yourself that you recognize these traits in people
yep,
and you don't get taken advantage of anymore.
correct.
And so it is a very powerful thing to do to heal within. So as a parental alienation and narcissistic coach, what do you who is it that you're well, that's not the right question. Hold on a second.
Okay.
As you're being a parental alienation and narcissistic coach, so is there one piece of advice that you can give someone who's dealing with things that maybe you've been dealing with, at least on some level, give them some kind of advice, and then you can share with them maybe how they can reach out to you, because I'm going to put it in the comments for everybody. But the people that are listening, if they're listening while they're doing other things, they might be able to just take it and get on their phone and send you a message.
Yes. So my first piece of advice is reach out to a domestic violence shelter. If you're in a situation, reach out to a domestic violence shelter. They will get you the help you need. Um, Reaching out to the police isn't done. always work. It's not always effective because, like I said, they're missing the red flags, and your ex-husband or your narcissistic partner is going to paint a picture that you're crazy and delusional. This is their purpose. They want to walk away and look like the victim, and that you were the abuser. So I would suggest to reach out to your domestic violence shelter and then do the inner healing work before you jump into another relationship. I'm still not interested and still not completely healed 5 years later, even after all the work that I've done. I still won't put myself out there. And there are other good men out there. They're not all like this. But until you know your own worth, and until you know, once you learn to love yourself, and you know respect and worthiness that you have, you can put that out vibrationally and frequency wise, and you will have the right person. When it is the right time, God will bring you that right person. Don't go looking for another man to fill the void. Don't go hop into another relationship because you're going to be right back in the same situation. Give yourself time to heal. Reach out to me if you're in the middle of a divorce, or you're looking for guidance and help and direction to get reunited with a child that's been alienated from you, or if you need guidance and who to call and reach out specifically is specialized in these divorce proceedings, that there's not many out there, but I know who they are. Then reach out to me, and I would love nothing more than to help life coach these individuals through this process of healing, or whatever their needs are in their divorce case, or hooking them up with the right resources. That's just the main things that I would say is jumping from one relationship to the next. It's just a vicious cycle. And if you have children involved, that is not what you want to show your kids. That's not acceptable. And they shouldn't grow up thinking that's the best they can do. Because there's
that's normal. Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah. So perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here, Darci. We're at our end of our time, and I so appreciate you sharing and being vulnerable and giving us part of your story and offering to help others through that process. Because I have never had that way, but I've had little bits and pieces that luckily I stopped before it could get to that. And not even sure why. I just knew I'm out of here. And so I thank God every day that I did not stay in that. And I had more than one of those relationships, and they weren't too far apart. And so I knew, I can see the writing on the wall, this is the same person with a different name. And I gotta stop this stuff. So
Yeah.
It's really, really important for your self-care, for your
Yes.
your mind, to get away from any relationship that with a partner, and be and heal and learn and grow and become so strong in who you are that nobody can ever do that kind of thing to you again. And so I am so glad that you're here to help people that are in that kind of situation, that don't know what to do. And so did you say you said send an email? What is your email so that they can send it?
My email, that I would guide them to. I have a Facebook profile under Darci Turner. It's DARCI Turner, TURNER. Since I'm still kind of under a semi-witness protection program for my safety, I do have it blocked. So you'll have to ask to friend request me. If you want to reach out to me and send me a message on Messenger, and we can talk one off and start the process of helping. Or you can reach out to me on my personal email, which is Darci, DARCI, with the dot in the middle, MEMS, M as in Mary, M as in Mary, S as in Sam, at iCloud.com. So it's darci.mems@icloud.com. You can send me an email there, or try to reach me on Facebook under Darci Turner. And I will do my absolute best, because this is my calling and purpose, to help these women see and know the signs, and then start educating the legal and judicial system.
Yeah, it might not be a bad thing to educate some teenagers too.
Oh, no, totally.
To see what, so they
totally
can start recognizing it, you
No,
know?
that's totally part of my whole purpose.
Yeah.
As my girls are still in it, I want teenagers to be drawn to me. I want them to I want to help heal the whole family. And I know of the reunification programs, so they can start healing as a family, as one.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you again. And I just want to leave these last words, and these words are going to mean a little bit different after this conversation. But the best way to predict the future is create it. So, what are you creating? And with that, I will say, mwah, love you guys.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.